There are snake species that are immune to the venom of other species, and that is when the greatest advantage in nature becomes meaningless. When a venomous snake faces its very own kind, all familiar rules begin to collapse. No more safety, no more distance, only instinct and the outcome. Just one disadvantageous moment is enough for everything to reverse. So how terrifying will those scenes be when recorded in the wild? Let's explore. Python vs. python. On damp ground beneath the forest canopy, two juvenile pythons suddenly coil tightly around each other in a tense struggle. Their still soft bodies quickly overlap, tightening, tightening, until one loop accidentally locks across the opponent's head. The restrained python's breathing becomes erratic within the confined space of the coils. At this moment, a python's strength does not lie in crushing the lungs, but in sustained pressure that restricts the airway and blood flow to the brain, rapidly pushing the body into oxygen deprivation. But unlike a true hunt, the constrictor's instinct stops at the right moment. When it senses that the opponent is fully subdued and no longer a threat, the coils slowly loosen. For juvenile pythons, their bodies are sensitive enough to read the state of an opponent through subtle vibrations. This is a collision meant more for learning than elimination. A moment of sparing a fellow species so both can continue growing in the harsh, wild world. Musurana vs. rattlesnake. The Musurana coils its body tightly around the rattlesnake, each loop pressing inward and leaving the prey with no space to resist. Musurana is a snake that specializes in hunting other snakes. But what sets it apart is that its primary diet includes extremely venomous species. As the struggle weakens, it begins sliding its head along the prey's body, moving very slowly until its mouth reaches just behind the rattlesnake's head. No matter how deadly the venom of the prey, the Musurana calmly attacks and turns it into dinner. After successfully adjusting the prey, the swallowing process begins. Musurana possesses a unique immune system that allows it to be fully resistant to the venom of most snakes in its habitat. When swallowing, its jawbones are not rigidly fused, allowing the mouth to open far beyond the size of its head, while the trachea can shift to one side to maintain breathing even when the throat is completely filled. The prey has been swallowed whole. But when swallowing prey that is too long and heavy, pressure from the mass of flesh inside compresses the lungs and heart, making the Musurana appear visibly uncomfortable. It chooses survival before thinking about eating again. Rattlesnake versus lizard. The lizard stands motionless beneath a layer of dry leaves, its body pressed flat against the ground, skin color blending into the forest floor like a piece of bark. But in that seemingly still moment, a predator has already detected its presence from afar. The rattlesnake approaches slowly. It does not need clear sight. The heat-sensing pits on its head allow it to precisely detect the lizard's body heat through the leaves, identifying head position and orientation from subtle thermal differences alone. The rattlesnake moves closer, lifts its head slightly, its mouth opening slowly as it calmly prepares to feed. During swallowing, the snake's body remains almost motionless. Only waves of internal muscular contractions travel along its length, pushing the lizard deeper inside. Its venom contains powerful enzymes that begin breaking down tissue and blood vessels, even as the prey is still being swallowed. The snake's trachea is shifted to one side, allowing it to breathe normally even when the throat is completely blocked. In silence, the hunt ends cleanly and coldly. Musurana versus a lizard. The Musurana slowly slithers into the mouth of a narrow earthen burrow, and today it has not eaten anything. Because they frequently burrow and move through tight spaces, their eyes have not evolved for long-distance vision. Inside the burrow, light nearly disappears. The Musurana navigates using its tongue, constantly sweeping the ground to collect scent and faint vibrations. Its mouth opens, pulling small clumps of soil outward. Each time, the head retracts. The interior space expands a little more. And it has caught a lizard. Thanks to its superior ability to assess the environment through thermal sensing, the Musurana does not hesitate to hunt in dark burrows. It can still execute a 100% accurate strike, even when its eyes are effectively useless. After feeding, the Musurana becomes extremely sluggish and lethargic. It usually seeks a safe shelter like the very burrow it just dug to catch prey, remaining motionless for days or even weeks. Viper versus lizard. A lizard crawls through leaf litter, unaware that a predator has been waiting there all along. After the bite, the viper does not pursue or rush. Just seconds later, the prey's body begins to betray itself. Convulsions ripple beneath the thin skin. Legs flail aimlessly. Behavior gradually loses control, as if no longer receiving commands from the brain. The venom moves ahead of all reflexes. It does not kill through pressure or external injury, but by disrupting the delicate control between nerves and muscles. The viper returns. Its movement is slow and precise, as if it already knows the prey has no remaining options. Now its only task is to swallow. The entire body works in perfect coordination, wave after wave of contractions pulling the prey deeper. No rush, no constriction needed. Musurana versus snake.
Ela tá torcendo.
And this time, the nemesis of snakes continues its hunt.
Ó, pegou pela cabeça aí. A briga era essa daí.
A short, precise lunge, fast enough to cut off any chance of evasive reaction. Living daily with snake hunting has pushed its experience against its own kind to the highest level. Once it targets a species, escape becomes unlikely. With strong musculature, the Musurana's hunting style is always a rapid attack, followed by constriction until the prey suffocates. It begins adjusting the prey and its posture, preparing for swallowing. When swallowing, the Musurana uses an advantage few other snakes possess: exceptionally soft connective tissue around the ribs, allowing the rib cage to expand sideways rather than only vertically. This distributes internal pressure evenly instead of concentrating it at a single point. Because its fangs are located toward the back of the throat, the Musurana often appears to chew its prey. This motion helps drive venom deeper, while also gradually pushing the prey's body into the esophagus. King cobra versus reticulated python. Inside a cramped wooden box, the king cobra moves slowly, each body movement pressing closer to the prey. A probing bite is delivered, but the reticulated python shows no intention of counterattacking, prioritizing evasion over direct confrontation. Both understand that a small mistake would be costly. The king cobra needs a perfect bite angle to avoid being drawn into constricting coils. The reticulated python denies that opportunity, constantly adjusting posture, keeping its neck and head out of reach. After shedding, the king cobra is always this aggressive and highly alert. Prolonged hunger sharpens the cobra's hunting reflexes. It commits to a final attack, but the prey narrowly avoids it. In confined spaces, power does not lie in striking, but in forcing the opponent to make no mistakes. Cobra versus grass snake. The king cobra attacks a grass snake outside the box, biting tightly into the body to prevent escape. The prey struggles desperately, attempting to strike the cobra's hood, but the cobra is too fast, twisting its body and clamping down on the prey's head. Once the skull is controlled, resistance nearly ceases. The king cobra does not constrict forcefully, but applies just enough pressure to immobilize. This reduces damage to the mouth and prevents breaking fangs while the prey is still twitching. The swallowing process begins slowly. The two halves of the cobra's lower jaw function almost independently, alternately pulling the prey deeper inside. For the king cobra, this is not just a meal, but the result of a perfectly refined chain of reflexes designed for hunting its own kind. King snake versus ringneck snake. The king snake silently slithers through decaying leaves, maintaining its habit of hunting other snakes. But this time, it has entered territory controlled by a ring-necked snake.
What?
The confrontation unfolds extremely fast. The ring-necked snake suddenly closes in, locking onto the head and forcing the king snake's neck downward, cutting off any counterattack. The king snake's body is left with only scattered, weakening movements.
Now it's got around his head.
When the head is firmly controlled, reflexive nerve responses in that region begin to shut down. The ring-necked snake does not need to constrict forcefully. Simply holding the correct position long enough causes the opponent to weaken. In the world of snakes, controlling the head means controlling the entire battle. King snake versus patch-nosed snake. The king snake silently approaches the patch-nosed snake, then suddenly accelerates, clamping tightly onto its body and holding firm, leaving no space to escape.
The snake grabs the patch nose just below the neck.
Living long in environments filled with venomous snakes has allowed the king snake's body to develop tolerance to certain types of venom. This advantage is what enables it to dare hunt even venomous snakes that few predators would attempt. The prey is completely subdued. Its jaws can separate flexibly, each alternating movement of the jaw muscles pulling the prey inward, while the body can expand up to 3 times its normal size to adapt to prey larger than itself. A meal like this provides enough energy for the king snake for many days, even lasting an entire week in the wild. Indigo snake versus rat snake. Focused on tracking food. The rat snake does not realize it has slithered deep into the hunting territory of an indigo snake. The strike is launched almost immediately. Predators will always prioritize attacking the head. As a specialist in hunting other snakes, including venomous ones, the indigo snake possesses exceptional venom resistance and reflexes. The rat snake thrashes, searching for an escape, but against the indigo snake's precise control, every effort proves futile. The encounter ends quickly, and the lost wanderer becomes the next prey. Black mamba versus mouse. Overconfident, the mouse believes the black mamba will ignore its presence. It casually runs back and forth, as if teasing a cold-blooded assassin. Even when a warning strike is delivered, the mouse fails to realize that the line between life and death is already very close. The black mamba instantly pivots and delivers a short, perfectly precise bite. Neurotoxic venom rapidly paralyzes the prey. The snake begins swallowing slowly, leaving behind a chilling silence after the explosive moment of death. Python versus python. The smaller python is still fully focused on its meal when it unknowingly enters the sight of a much larger individual. Without hesitation, the larger python immediately closes in and constricts its prey. For pythons, strength lies in pressure. Each time the prey exhales, the constriction tightens, quickly pushing the opponent's body into exhaustion. Hunger lasting too long drives it to consume even its own kind. Movement weakens, then stops entirely. The victor begins swallowing its own kind, a moment of extreme brutality. Black racer versus cottonmouth. Under the dense forest canopy, two low-moving shadows cross paths, tension forming as the distance vanishes. With no room to evade, their bodies collide directly. Interlocking bites appear almost simultaneously, locking both into a confined zone of combat. True to its name, the racer's speed advantage, nearly twice that of its enemy, allows it to quickly take control of the encounter. From that moment, the outcome is sealed. The black racer slowly consumes its prey, closing the confrontation as a familiar link in the cycle of survival. Musurana versus Corredera. Musurana is a snake evolved to hunt its own kind, thanks to a body nearly immune to the venom of many other snakes. But today, it encounters Corredera fast, aggressive, and fierce, yet non-venomous. Two bodies twist tightly together, biting and holding repeatedly, each side pouring all instinctive strength into gaining control. Over time, Musurana dominates. This snake can regulate constriction pressure according to the prey's breathing rhythm, and it holds a lethal advantage by controlling the opponent's head. As life fades, Musurana begins swallowing its prey slowly, the way a seasoned predator concludes its confrontation. Brown snake versus tiger snake. In this scene, the brown snake tightly coils around the tiger snake's body with multiple successive loops, leaving no time for the opponent to trigger any reflex. The coils contract with each muscular rhythm, maintaining uninterrupted pressure, gradually depriving the tiger snake of the ability to breathe as its chest cannot expand. Resistance collapses rapidly. The situation is now fully under the brown snake's control, the one holding absolute dominance. Python versus rabbit. The python stretches along the roof of the rabbit enclosure, half of its body suspended in midair, yet firmly anchored by long muscles gripping the support. Below, the rabbit moves about, completely unaware of the threat hanging directly above. Little by little, the python lowers its body, channeling force into its tail to maintain balance, fully controlling the angle of descent and the timing of the strike. and the unfortunate rabbit is seized. Life quickly fades from the rabbit's eyes. Cobra vs. Rattlesnake. The cobra has fully controlled the rat snake and begins the swallowing process while the prey's body is still undeformed. Instead of biting and swallowing immediately from the head, it opens its jaws and slides along the opponent's body, each movement drawing the jaws closer toward the head. Before eating another snake, a cobra always identifies the exact position of the prey's head. This allows it to clearly distinguish head from tail, since swallowing in reverse can cause scales to flare upward, jamming the jaws or injuring the mouth. This method also significantly reduces the risk of being bitten back during the swallowing process. Russell viper versus banded crate. A chance video captures a rare moment as a banded crate silently follows closely behind a Russell viper. The distance so close they nearly touch.
The banded crate now. Day 2, Russell viper.
And the opportunity appears.
That's what they do. The crate.
After being bitten, the Russell viper continues moving strongly, but its reflexes begin to fragment and lose coordination.
Maximum venom into
The venom of the banded crate is ranked among the most dangerous in the snake world.
the viper seems to be just in the outskirts of the
And today's unlucky victim receives the full dose.
job almost done.
Rattlesnake vs. mouse. The indigo snake presses low to the ground, each slither narrowing the distance to the prey ahead. When the mouse finally realizes the danger, escape routes are already gone. The surrounding space is sealed in silence. Lacking venom, the indigo snake must rely on pressure and select small, weaker prey like mice to ensure hunting efficiency. The hunt ends without a sound, true to the way nature operates when predator and prey meet. Indigo snake vs. rat. Bam. The footage clearly shows how terrifying it is when rattlesnake venom begins to take effect on its prey. Remaining motionless, it silently approaches the mouse, each movement shrinking the distance without revealing any sign. The decisive moment unfolds extremely fast. The mouse immediately falls into chaos, its body convulsing and leaping uncontrollably in sheer panic. This is not just a reaction to pain. The venom simultaneously disrupts nerve signals and destroys tissue, causing the body to gradually shut down, an ending that makes anyone shudder. Hyena versus African wild dogs. The opening footage captures the pack hunting skills of African wild dogs. They do not rush in for a killing bite. Instead, they constantly close in from multiple directions, forcing the hyena to spin and defend itself. African wild dogs hunt through attrition, taking turns attacking, biting quickly and retreating, targeting the legs and flanks to throw their opponent off balance. Against this kind of coordinated assault, the hyena's powerful jaws lose their advantage. Every second under siege pushes it closer to exhaustion. Hyena versus leopard, African wild dogs. A leopard has just taken down an impala when African wild dogs appear nearby. Unlike the solitary hunting leopard, wild dogs rely on numbers to steal prey before the opponent can react. The leopard is forced to abandon the kill and leap into a tree to stay safe. But when the hyena arrives, the balance immediately shifts. This time, the hyena becomes the dominant force, using pack strength, crushing bite force, and endurance far beyond that of the wild dogs. Facing the risk of serious injury, the wild dog pack hesitates, allowing the hyena to claim what remains of the carcass. Hyena versus antelope, African wild dogs. An antelope desperately charges through a muddy wetland, but a single misstep leaves it surrounded by African wild dogs. The wild dogs are forced to give up the prey when hyenas arrive in overwhelming numbers. Horns are not just for display, but true weapons. An antelope can gore forward, hook sideways, or even puncture the belly or thigh of a predator that approaches from the wrong angle. The antelope fights back desperately, but constant biting and holding quickly drain its strength. They drag the prey onto the bank, ending the hunt in a cloud of red dust at sunset. Hyena versus leopard. A leopard has just caught a warthog at its burrow when a hyena rushes in to steal the kill. Both clamp their jaws onto the carcass, violently tugging it across the ground.
Just come in there.
The leopard tries to hold on using its teeth and body weight, while the hyena repeatedly yanks at the hindquarters to tear flesh free. With weaker bite force and poorer scavenging ability than the hyena, the leopard gradually loses its grip on the kill. It chooses to share the meal, something it would never do with an enemy, because holding on any longer might cost it its life.
It's just died.
A leopard with a broken leg lies on open ground, breathing heavily as a ring of hyenas slowly closes in. They recognize the weakness and repeatedly attack the injured hind leg. Hyenas hunt through attrition, using numbers to exhaust their target before delivering the final blow. With its leg unable to support it, the leopard loses its speed and ability to fight back. Fortunately, this time they only threaten and do not press the attack further. Hyena versus wildebeest. A wildebeest already carries a wound on its flank when a hyena approaches. The struggle erupts directly on the ground, and the advantage immediately shifts to the predator. The hyena does not attack randomly. It quickly identifies the weakness, repeatedly driving its bites into the injured flank, where muscles and blood vessels are easily torn. In nature, hyenas are notorious for exploiting existing injuries, turning a still-resisting animal into an exhausted opponent in a short time. The fight requires no speed, only precision and relentless persistence. On the open savanna, a wildebeest becomes separated from the herd. That is when the hyenas strike. They do not rush in for the kill, but continuously close in from behind, clamping onto the tail, a vital balance point during escape. Each tug slows the prey a little more. The wildebeest turns to fight back, curved horns striking in desperation.
Look at another one, another fox.
But hyenas hunt through endurance. When the prey's strength fades, the outcome of the chase is sealed. Hyena vs. rhinoceros. On dry ground, a rhinoceros with a severed tail becomes an unfortunate target. The hyenas are not foolish enough to attack head-on. They constantly approach from behind, focusing on the open wound, biting and tearing without pause. With skin thick like armor, the rhinoceros is nearly immune to ordinary bites, but the tail is a rare vulnerability. The accumulated pain gradually breaks its resilience. Eventually, the rhinoceros is forced to flee to escape the relentless harassment. Hyena vs. topi. A topi collapses on the savanna, its injured leg leaving it unable to stand. From behind, hyenas quietly close in. Without the need for a chase, they choose the right moment to attack the prey's back and flanks. Topi are famous for speed and powerful leaps when healthy, but once mobility is lost, all advantages disappear. After only a few minutes of struggle, the topi is brought down, and the entire hyena clan rushes in, turning the moment into a chaotic communal feast. A topi has just given birth when hyenas appear, patiently closing in step by step with the goal of taking the newborn. Two adult topi repeatedly charge forward to counterattack, driving their horns straight at the predators to force them back. The neck and shoulder skin of hyenas is extremely thick, reinforced by fat and muscle, allowing them to absorb the topi's charges without serious injury. Waiting for the moment when the topi lose balance after an attack, the hyenas suddenly rush in, seize the calf, and drag it away, ending the brief confrontation. Hyena vs. hyena. Two hyenas confront each other directly, growling before lunging within seconds.
Turn off the TV. This is very, very sorry.
Their bites focus on the head and ears, areas that cause intense pain but are rarely fatal. One suffers a heavy blow, its ear torn and bleeding clearly, while the opponent remains largely unharmed. In internal disputes, hyenas usually target the ears and face to break an opponent's morale rather than kill. Since losing an ear causes pain and loss of status, but rarely threatens life. The injured hyena quickly retreats, accepting defeat. Hyena versus zebra. Rare footage shows an injured zebra with a broken leg encountering a hyena clan. It struggles to stand, hoping to escape. But the shattered leg makes every effort meaningless. In pack hunting, hyenas deliberately prolong the attack, allowing the prey to collapse from pain and blood loss before the clan moves in to finish it. No miracle comes for the zebra. Hyena versus buffalo. An injured buffalo stands still on open ground as hyenas quickly spread out and attack from multiple directions. They avoid the head and instead repeatedly target the bleeding tail, biting and yanking to deepen the wound. Buffalo rely on body mass and direct charges to counterattack, a strategy poorly suited against prolonged harassment. As pain spreads and strength declines, the buffalo turns and flees, choosing survival over confrontation. Another calf becomes an easy target for the hyenas. It panics and runs, but its heavy steps cannot create distance. Buffalo calves lack the thick skin and developed horns of adults, making them far easier to restrain when closely pursued. After sustained pressure, it is brought down. The mother glances back briefly, but faced with overwhelming numbers and danger to herself, she is forced to keep running. On the savannah, survival instinct is sometimes more ruthless than any bond. African wild dog versus Nyala antelope. Across the plains of southern Africa, the setting sun marks the beginning of the hunt by one of nature's most efficient predators.
The devoted Timana?
African wild dogs do not depend on individual strength, but operate as a single unified entity.
Never survive.
Their coordination is not just instinct, but precise calculation of space and timing.
With great leaders like Timana,
A herd of antelope enters their sights. The chase erupts at extreme speed, all unnecessary movement eliminated to make way for velocity. When pursuing prey, wild dogs can maintain speeds of up to 60 kilometers per hour over long distances. By attacking simultaneously from multiple directions, they quickly neutralize the prey's ability to resist. The ferocity of each bite is not only to satisfy hunger, but to ensure the survival of the entire pack until tomorrow.
Until tomorrow.
African wild dog versus impala lion. The black-spotted warriors begin a new day by surveying the riverside terrain, where every small movement is carefully noted.
Malau has no choice.
For wild dogs, the pressure to find food is constant. The hunt begins when an impala enters their range. The prey performs dramatic high leaps in an attempt to escape the jaws of its pursuers. But luck does not intervene.
The last lucky break. Having escaped the fury of
The speed of wild dogs is a collective tactical weapon. They distribute their forces to maintain relentless pressure, causing prey that may be faster to still be defeated by endurance. But the presence of a lion completely changes the order.
It's a dangerous place, but unexpected.
The conflict is not limited to food. The lion actively pursues to exert territorial pressure on the wild dog pack. This is direct competition between apex predators to maintain control of the area. African wild dog versus warthog. On the savanna, silence does not mean safety. A lone hyena boldly steals a portion of the kill right before the eyes of the wild dog pack. At the den, vulnerable pups are waiting. The pack is forced to begin a new hunt to compensate for the lost food.
The future of the pack will be lost.
The wild dogs coordinate seamlessly, pursuing a warthog with remarkable speed and stamina. Their encircling strategy gradually closes the distance. When the prey is brought down, the pack consumes the food at extreme speed. This behavior minimizes the risk of kleptoparasitism by larger scavengers. But how do their pups get fed?
They will not be able to regurgitate. Where are you, Malau?
After feeding adult wild dogs return to the den and regurgitate food for the pups and the individuals that stayed behind to guard.
The hunters deliver a life-saving.
This mechanism ensures nutrients are evenly distributed, maintaining stability and strength throughout the entire pack structure.
There is no rest for
The pups compete for food under the watchful eye of their mother. Each successful meal is a step closer to maturity in an ecosystem with no room for weakness. Along a road cutting through dense shrubland, a life-or-death confrontation unfolds between a pack of African wild dogs and a lone warthog. Wild dogs are relentless hunters, but this target is not easily subdued. With tusks made of keratin harder than even a lion's bones, this is the warthog's final lifeline. Pack coordination often dominates, but the strength and ferocity of prey at the edge of survival can also change the outcome. The hunters attempt to encircle and wear down their opponent. However, the warthog's agility allows it to protect vital areas, preventing the dogs from delivering a decisive bite. Its lower tusks can be sharpened to razor-like edges through friction, with the upper tusks capable of inflicting deep, fatal wounds. As the pack's persistence begins to fade against this solid defense, the warthog seizes the moment to retreat safely. African wild dog versus elephant. At scarce waterholes during the dry season, competition among large mammals is constant.
Even the waterhole is wilting.
When a herd of elephants occupies the site, body size becomes the deciding factor for access to resources.
Pale pack has to drink.
The appearance of an African wild dog pack triggers the elephant's defensive instincts.
Every decision counts.
Adult elephants move forward, forming a living wall ready for a potential confrontation. Against a large elephant herd, wild dogs are not a serious concern, and the elephants remain calm even with predators nearby.
Confidence.
When elephant calves are present, the aggression level of adult elephants increases significantly. Wild dogs are highly social predators using dispersal tactics to reduce an opponent's focus. However, against a massively heavier adversary, speed serves only to maintain a safe distance rather than initiate an attack. Forward charges and stomping behaviors are intended to drive intruders away, not to launch an actual attack.
Too risky. The pups are not ready.
Perhaps the pressure from the elephant herd is simply too great for the dogs to risk engagement. African wild dog versus hyena. In the savanna ecosystem, competition between African wild dogs and spotted hyenas is a never-ending story. A pack of African wild dogs advances, targeting the carcass of a large elephant, where their longtime rivals are already waiting. Spotted hyenas, with their advantage in size and overwhelming bite force, attempt to secure this valuable protein source.
Test their resolve.
However, the wild dogs do not retreat. They deploy their signature encirclement strategy on individual targets.
Whatever it takes.
A chaotic clash erupts as coordinated pack tactics collide with brute individual strength. They use agility to deliver lightning-fast bites to vulnerable areas behind the hyenas. The hyenas respond by lowering their center of gravity and spinning to protect softer body parts from the pack's speed, but the numbers are simply too great to handle. Once the hamstrings are severed or leg muscles are severely damaged, the opponent loses balance and can no longer escape. Bites to these areas easily cause deep injuries, rapid blood loss, and exhaustion without requiring excessive bite force. The hyena clan quickly abandons the carcass and moves on to a new pursuit, leaving the battlefield shrouded in dust and survival. African wild dog versus impala. A lone warrior launches an attack at the impala's lower abdomen. As an experienced hunter, it needs no additional pack members for this hunt. However, a sudden adrenaline surge allows the impala to temporarily overcome shock and remain standing. To confront the enemy, the antelope uses its long horns, an effective defensive tool in direct confrontations. Yet the hunting success of wild dogs reaches its highest level among mammals due to their pack structure. In a blink of an eye, the entire pack arrives, sealing the encirclement. African wild dogs are the most efficient land predators. While lions have a hunting success rate of only about 17 to 30%, wild dogs achieve 60 to 85%. Constant pressure leads to exhaustion and severe blood loss, causing the antelope to collapse rapidly. This is proof of the effectiveness of cooperative hunting strategies, allowing them to take down prey far larger than themselves. African wild dog versus waterbuck. On open plains, survival is not just about strength, but a battle of endurance. African wild dogs begin their hunt silently closing in on the target. The waterbuck makes leaps of up to 3 meters, but its speed cannot match the pack. Realizing it cannot shake them on land, the antelope decides to charge into a nearby body of water. However, the surface is far from calm. Massive hippos emerge, creating a dangerous barrier. But fortunately, it escapes just in time before becoming an appetizer for the hippos. The antelope must remain near the water to prevent the dogs from approaching, while also staying alert to the giants below. The wild dog pack gathers along the shore, patiently waiting for an opening. A few individuals attempt attacks from the water's edge, but are met with fierce resistance from the antelope's sharp horns. The confrontation reaches a stalemate. When survival instincts meet careful calculation, the line between predator and prey becomes thinner than ever. Python versus wild duck. A wild duck is swimming calmly, completely unaware that it has already entered the sights of a patient predator. In a split second, the ground trembles as the massive python attacks deadly coils, rapidly locking onto the target, turning the prey's escape efforts into complete futility. In the wild, reticulated pythons commonly reach lengths of 5 to 7 meters. However, exceptional individuals can grow up to 9 meters or even longer. Reticulated pythons are non-venomous. They kill their prey using pure muscular power. The constriction force of a large python can reach 14 pounds per square inch or more. With its enormous size, the total pressure exerted on the prey's body can be comparable to having a truck pressing down on its chest. The python can sense the slightest vibrations from the prey's heartbeat and adjust its constriction accordingly. Thanks to a jaw structure that is not fixed but connected by highly flexible ligaments, the python can open its mouth wide enough to envelop objects far larger than its own head. Esophageal muscles perform wave-like movements to push the prey into the stomach. Layer by layer, feathers and rigid bones disappear into the predator's body. This process demands extreme focus and consumes a tremendous amount of energy for the python. The battle ends in the silence of the forest. Once again, nature proves that the line between predator and prey is separated by only a single moment of vulnerability and an uncompromising survival instinct. Python versus crocodile. What happens when two apex predators collide in an aquatic environment? The clash erupts as the python initiates an attack, but the crocodile manages to evade and delivers a threatening snap in response. The python attempts to retreat, searching for smaller prey among dark rocky crevices beneath the muddy bottom. Pythons are also excellent swimmers and can remain submerged for 20 to 30 minutes on a single breath, making their hunting environment more diverse than ever. However, the crocodile does not easily abandon its target. It patiently waits until the python moves closer to the water's edge. As the distance closes, a frontal bite is launched. The crocodile's advantage in size and its armored scaly skin allow it to maintain control despite the constricting pressure. The struggle ends with the crocodile gripping the python's body firmly in its jaws and moving away from the scene. This behavior reinforces the hierarchy of the food chain, where jaw strength and armored scales overpower the resistance of a python. On muddy riverbanks, a large Burmese python is focused on drinking water, unaware that the true ruler of this place is nearby. The python begins to close the distance entering the aquatic territory with calculated undulating movements. In reality, Burmese pythons do not see crocodiles the way humans do, especially in terms of detail and color. Their eyesight is relatively poor, but they compensate with heat-sensing pits along their lips, allowing them to see infrared radiation emitted by living creatures. Burmese pythons possess tremendous constriction strength, but crocodiles are not easy opponents. Their bite force can reach up to 2,000 psi, approximately 142 times stronger than a python's constriction force. Two great powers collide, yet neither dares to attack first. The python shows signs of dangerously closing in, but the crocodile immediately delivers a warning snap, forcing the opponent to keep its distance. It quickly departs before facing an unfavorable outcome. Python versus king cobra. And finally, this time, the python encounters a truly worthy opponent, a king cobra of comparable size.
Nah, ini kawan-kawan melakukan perlawanan.
The python falls into complete paralysis, unable to constrict or counterbite. It focuses its bite on the python's lower jaw. Venom injected near the head reaches the brain and central nervous system faster than from any other part of the body. The venom causes the python's jaw muscles to relax, leaving it unable to clamp down or hold on.
Melawan. Nih.
Once the timing is right, the king cobra begins to gradually swallow its prey.
Ini sudah sekitar 1 jam. Ini masih.
The scientific name of the king cobra means snake eater. Pythons are a preferred meal because they provide an enormous amount of protein in a single hunt.
Dia berusaha menarik.
The king cobra's repeated bite and swallow action is not merely feeding, but an extremely precise mechanical process. With each deep bite, muscles surrounding the venom glands contract to inject additional venom into the prey. If the python is too long, the king cobra uses powerful esophageal muscles to fold the python inside its own stomach. Python versus turtle. A reticulated python is exhibiting egg-guarding behavior inside a hollow tree trunk. The cloudy white eye membranes indicate it is in the pre-shedding phase, a time when vision is limited and the animal becomes more sensitive to its surroundings. Unlike many snake species that abandon their eggs after laying, pythons are extremely devoted mothers. The average incubation period for python eggs ranges from 60 to 90 days. And during that time, uninvited guests may appear like this turtle. When a box turtle moves into the nest's perimeter, the python uses its tongue for chemical sensing and locates the intruder through heat-sensing pits. Instead of attacking the turtle, it prioritizes the safety of the eggs, allowing the armored visitor to wander around. However, the python's sensitivity increases as the intruder repeatedly passes by, threatening the nest's security. Despite impaired vision due to shedding thermal sensors, still allow the animal to defend the nest effectively against various intruders. Unable to tolerate it any longer, the python suddenly launches a decisive strike. Fortunately, the turtle manages to retract its head just in time before there is no escape. Musurana versus Musurana. In nature, the phenomenon of ophiophagy, or snake-eating behavior, is a harsh survival strategy. Musurana, scientifically known as Clelia clelia, is a snake native to Central and South America with extremely strong ophiophagic behavior. This footage captures a moment when a larger Musurana attempts to subdue a smaller individual using impressive muscular strength. Instead of using venom, they are true constrictors employing coils to disrupt the opponent's circulatory system. The larger snake repeatedly attempts body-controlling bites, but this approach appears ineffective. Finally, a decisive bite to the prey's head completely shuts down any remaining resistance. When food is scarce, or when two Musurana compete for territory, the larger individual often turns the smaller one into a meal. Their digestive system is designed to break down snake flesh extremely efficiently, making even their own kind just another long protein package. King cobra versus cobra. In a confined space, a direct confrontation unfolds between a king cobra and a smaller cobra. Facing its natural enemy, the smaller cobra immediately raises part of its body and spreads its hood in defense. When a king cobra confronts a smaller cobra, this is not a fair fight. In the reptile world, the king cobra is the ultimate nightmare of the cobra family. King cobras possess resistance to the venom of smaller cobras. A bite from a smaller cobra can kill a human, but it has little effect on a king cobra. In contrast, smaller cobras cannot resist king cobra venom. King cobras carry an enormous amount of neurotoxic venom, enough to bring down an adult elephant, so a smaller snake becomes paralyzed within minutes. However, in tight spaces, the king cobra's size advantage turns into a critical weakness, making it difficult to maneuver when attacking or evading. It is a calculating predator. If the risk of injury is too high, it will choose to withdraw and preserve its life, rather than gamble everything. Python versus deer. In the natural world, silence often signals an approaching threat. A massive reticulated python has already finished subduing an adult deer through sheer muscular power. There are no roars, only the inevitable constriction before consumption begins. Reticulated pythons possess a unique jaw structure that allows them to open their mouths to astonishing widths, swallowing prey far larger than their head size. They use backward curving teeth to grip and pull prey deeper into the esophagus. The constricting coils also help compress the prey, making the swallowing process smoother. Throughout this process, the python's trachea is pushed forward beneath the lower lip, allowing it to continue breathing even when the mouth cavity is completely filled. After such a meal, the python's metabolic rate surges. Internal organs, such as the heart and liver, enlarge to support the breakdown of protein and bone. A meal of this size can provide energy for weeks, even months. What you have just watched shows that in the world of venomous snakes, venom is not always an absolute advantage. And just one wrong choice is enough for everything to reverse in an uncontrollable way. Every encounter harbors risks, where the predator can also become the prey. If you find this video fascinating, hit like, leave a comment sharing your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel to continue exploring many other dramatic wild moments. Thank you for watching until the end. See you again in the next video.
Health Lucky.